All right, traders, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Thursday, November 18th, and this is your market recap. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only. You could read the whole risk disclaimer right there, and if the screen is a little bit fuzzy, it's just because YouTube takes a while to render the high definition version of the video. So theme of the day, let's get right to it. VIX higher for the day. I think probably if you turned on Twitter, you kind of heard about this a little bit, but well, two things probably. Just the breadth was really bad for the overall day. A lot more decliners than advancing names. And then, of course, what really kind of disguised some of that is the strength in big tech today. So here's the numbers in terms of the advancers versus decliners. I usually bring this up when we're looking at when there's large numbers for the day, right? When there's something kind of unusual. But movers, you can see for the Dow a little bit better than it was, I think, when I looked at one point in the day. But 19 decliners, 11 advancers. S&P 337 decliners versus 167 advancing names, and then really for the Nasdaq, almost 2,000 declining names and 867 advancing names. So, we've been seeing this probably 3 out of the last 5 days or so, something along those lines. There's just been a lot more days recently where the breadth has not been good. And if you look at the, I had this up in the room earlier, so I could probably bring this up, but if you look at the, here it is right here. If you look at the McClellan oscillator, you could kind of see what's going on here. And that's just basically a nice display of what I was just referring to over the last few days. We've got that bad breadth in the market. And you could see that really kind of curling over here and almost crossing the 200-day moving average. Now, this is going to get a little bit worse today because this was from this morning. So we'll keep an eye on that. A crossover over below the 20-day moving average isn't going to look great. Also keep in mind this. Now, the other thing too, a little bit of a grain of salt here. We've talked about this now a couple times this week, especially in the member weekend video, that these third weeks of the year. The third week of the month has been typically kind of weak, right? That's been a seasonal thing that's been going on all year long. So, I think that you kind of just have to keep that in the back of your mind, but also really be watching what you're doing in terms of how much risk you're taking. Now, what was particularly unusual, and it just felt like a really nice gift for the day, was the tech, and we'll go through a couple of these names, but really like your extended FANG names. Amazon, Apple were just unbelievable today, and you look at those two stocks, or if you would, you look at couple of your best performing areas of the market, right? If you look at the semis, and if you look at retail names, both up around 2% for the day. So again, really unusual, to see that. And if you would say, hey, if someone told you, hey, the semis were up 2% for the day, retail stocks were up 2%, consumer discretionary up over 1%, you'd probably say, hey, the market really had a very strong day. But looking under the hood, that just wasn't the case. So again, my bottom line here is being selective, going with where you're seeing strength and just cutting losers very, very quickly has been the name of the game for me in terms of strategy. I do find, as I mentioned in yesterday's video, definitely, finding a couple losers here, but I'm not staying in the losers very long. Also, another thing that I'm doing is if I have a winning trade and it gets back to my cost basis or a little bit below my cost basis, I'm not struggling with that trade. I'm just taking it off. Why? Because I just think that this market is seeing too much weakness under the hood right now to kind of mess and try to stay in some trades to make them work. So let's get into a couple charts for the day. Here's what the S&P looks like. Of course, being helped by some of those larger names, right? Because the S&P as well as Nasdaq is market cap weighted, meaning the larger names, the names that did the heavy lifting today, are going to impact the index more than some of the other names. But we are above value. We came in and we retested again. And if we look at the daily chart as well, you're really not going to see anything that you don't like here in the S&P chart. We could look at the RSP too. that might be showing a little bit more weakness. And there it is, right? So you can see that there's a little bit more weakness in this chart. If you're not familiar with what the RSP is, it's the same names in the S&P 500, but equally weighted, right? So that is showing, a retest of the 20-day moving average. Again, not horrible week, but there's a difference there between RSP and the SPY. Right. And if we want to continue with this exercise, the Qs did make a new high today. Again, that's where the strength was, up over 1%. And where there is not strength right now is in the small caps. They continue to leak. However, they closed right at that 20-day moving average. I thought that we could see a move back down to that 20-day moving average. We have, and this may, for now, and this is why I think that you have to kind of keep in the back of your mind that we're in a weaker seasonal period of the month, to just say, hey, maybe that's partly the reason behind it. We don't know for sure, but I'm watching IWM. Don't have any exposure on to that group. All right, and I'll go over my trades really quick here. But we talked about this. We lined this up very well from this morning. Talking about what Macy's, their quarter that they put in, and we were looking through some names in the pre-market session that we do every morning at Tribeca Trade Group at just after 9 o'clock in the morning to the open. We kind of just scour the tape and kind of go over some ideas. And one of the things that I brought up was that we're now a week out of Black Friday sales, right? So typically, what I've seen in my career is the Black Friday holiday sales day is a buy the rumor, sell the news event. So if you're not familiar with that, I'll explain really quickly. But buy the rumor in terms of anticipating that there's going to be good holiday sales, and then the day before or the day of before or after Thanksgiving, right? Because we have a half day on Friday. We're off on Thursday. We have a half day on Friday, but actually selling that news, and even though if they do mention, which I don't know that they are going to, but if they mention something like that, there's record-breaking sales, right? That you want to be set, in my opinion, right? Historically, what has worked is selling into that news, right? So as most trades work in this game, it's buy the rumor, sell the news. So buying some of these things like Amazon a week out, and certainly that worked really well. And I was expecting this to just basically get up to this virgin point of control, but we have gotten through that, and very, very impressive day, up 4% for Amazon. And this is one of those stocks that I have a love-hate relationship with. I love it when it's moving, and I hate it when it's not moving. So if we look at the weekly chart, we talked about this in Friday's video. If you remember that there was this doji candle that was right on the top of value. And you can go back, if you haven't seen Friday's video, we went through a bunch of charts on Friday's recap. And I mentioned that that was indecision, but it was moving in the right direction. And sure enough, that has resolved higher. So really, really like this. Hopefully that this closes, because this is not a complete weekly bar. It will be complete tomorrow, but 35.17 is a big level for me, right? That is using volume at price and a very significant level at that. So really excited to see that, and maybe this sets up for a nice trade. So how did I trade this? You could see I like to use call spreads. That's something that I did in the first half of last year quite a bit. Worked very well for me. Black Friday type sales. So we put this on right after the open. I did the 3,600, 3615 for $6, and I got out of that trade at the end of the day and rolled it out a little bit. Why did I roll that out? Because I made $5 on that trade. I could only make $4 more, right? And I'd have to hold that whole trade for next week to get that $4. That's not great risk to reward. So what I did is I rolled this trade out. I'm putting another trade back on for about $7.50. And again, this is $20 wide. I'll look to take this off north of $10, maybe around $15, or for a double would be great. The other trade that we talked about yesterday was Apple. I actually added to Apple today. I kind of just waited for this to materialize. So if you remember what I discussed yesterday, talked about this last virgin point of control being taken out, and which is derived from, if you want to see where this is derived from, it is all the way back here. Right, those are that's where those two Virgin point of controls are from. But I waited till I saw some strength in this today, and I said, "Hey, I think there's a chance that Apple could take this can get back above that level." That was before there was news, believe it or not, on the stock. So I was just really paying attention to what the price was telling me, and you could see over here that uh, where did I add this thing? Let's see. Yeah, right here. All right, so I was at 1140, and then I took a bunch of targets and then rolled it out again. So I'm now in the 160. So again, I try to stay in these trades for as long as I can when there's momentum, right? Sometimes, what I learned a few years ago, trading options is I would get, very pleased when I got an option trade to work, and I would just take it off and I would be happy. What I've learned to do is keep some skin in the game and see if this thing really wants to do something unusual. Right now, it's doing something unusual. We've had a huge couple of days in Apple, and we're out to new highs. So, when stocks do things like this, you have to be in them to some extent to make sure that you're getting the returns from that. And that's the whole trick of this game, right? Is to have exposure when stocks do something really special. Right now, Apple's doing something really special the last 2 days, two of the biggest days, I think, of its rally this year. Also, look at the volume on the bottom of your screen. A couple other stocks that worked for me pretty well today. I'm very pleased of where I am so far this month. Unity did well. This was also hit 210. I think it was a Motley Fool pick at some point around like 1 o'clock today. But I picked this trade up around where was that? I added to this trade around. This is one of my first trades of today. That was at 195. So I took a target around 205 today, and then just got out of some trades too, right? Google, we talked about that in yesterday's video. I thought that the price action was really tight, looked a bit jumbled up, and looked like at some point it was going to, I didn't know when, but it looked like sooner than later. I mentioned that this thing had a chance to get going, and it certainly did today. That was also up 1.2%. I had a spread that expired for tomorrow, call spread that expired for tomorrow. Got out of that, took one target at 6, and then took another exit here at $8, right? Paid 370, so really nice. And then again, I rolled that over too. I like how this looks going forward. So putting some skin back in the game here for next week. All right, and that's basically it. AW, I think that this tape is overall a bit challenged right now. This is a little bit of a preemptive trade. American Waterworks. I like to be in some type of REIT/utility here, but this hasn't triggered yet. It needs to get over 174, so it's kind of a preemptive position. Also, NTR. I've been noticing this strength in the agriculture space. CF Industries, great initials by the way, had a great move today, right? And this group has been strong, right? Archer Daniels Midland had a nice day today too, and NTR saw a big block of calls. They may have been crossed, but nevertheless, I like this chart, and I like this if it can get above 69. My stop is the 50-day moving average. All right, every trade we put on here is defined. And let's see, do I want to go? And by the way, the agriculture space, in terms of commodities, that is the group that's been strong. Not crude right now, and not copper as well. All right, guys. Like I said, I got out of ZTS. I got out of Asan, and it's funny because Asan went up as soon as I got out of it. But again, I'm taking notes in terms of what I'm seeing in terms of market breadth and reducing some positions, and going from there. Right. LAC was another one. Hit 2 targets today, and then it backed up and went below my cost basis. I'm not going to mess with that. One other trade that I thought interesting or one other setup, again, I continue to like the cyberspace. I think with all these new things that we're hearing about, new cars, new gadgets, metaverse, I don't think this trend in cyberspace is going to go anywhere. And I like the chart here in Fortinet with a stop just below top of value 338. All right, guys, that's it for today. Have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow.